America is solely funded by the Chrysler Corporation in the belief that only a quality education will keep America competitive today and tomorrow. The divisions of Chrysler Motors are Chrysler, Plymouth, Dodge, Dodge Truck, Jeep, and Eagle.
Good evening. I'm Roger Mudd. Welcome to Learning in America. This is our fifth and final program, and tonight we'll be examining some of the most important efforts underway to improve our public schools. Most Americans would agree that their schools need improving. Getting them to agree on how to improve and on what basis is quite another matter. Anyone who's ever gone to a local school board meeting knows how heated the debates can get. Multiply that experience times the 15,000 school boards we have in this country, and you'll get a rough idea of how hard it is to get our schools moving in any one direction. Indeed, change is never easy because it requires financial, personal, and political sacrifices that most of us are rarely willing to make. But this may be one of those rare times in American education, because there are many serious efforts underway to reform our schools at the local, the state, and the national levels. Tonight you'll be hearing about some of those efforts, and you'll be hearing George Bush talk about his first 3 months as our education president. We begin this evening with John Merrow's report on a man who says the condition of our school system is a national emergency and that he has a way to fix it. But as you might imagine, not everyone agrees.
Morgantown, right?
Morgantown, West Virginia.
Terrific. Nice to see you, sir.
Meet David Kearns, an unlikely player in the effort to change American schools. He's a businessman, chief executive officer of the Xerox Corporation. But for several years now, Kearns has been telling whoever would listen that America's schools need to change.
You know all the statistics. 700,000 dropouts, another 700,000 that get diplomas who can't read and write.
Tonight, he's on the stump talking to the National Urban League.
Now, I have felt, and the reason that I've been harsh about this, is that unless there is going to be real change, structural change, that business should take a stronger role.
Kearns' advocacy of a larger role for business in the schools has been a real turnoff for some people in the education community.
The idea that corporate leaders around the country will now have the minds, the consciousnesses of millions of our children in the palm of their hands seems to me dangerous. Are they going to want more Gandhis, more Thomas Mertons, more Thoreaus? Are they going to want more people like William Faulkner and Flannery O'Connor? Probably not. Those people would be terrible for business. Faulkner would never show up on time.
I have not seen a business yet that has asked educators to come and restructure it, because educators don't know how to restructure business. And likewise, business leaders don't know how to restructure education.
Kearns has demonstrated that he knows how to restructure a business. In 1982, Xerox was in crisis, steadily losing market share. As the new chief, Kearns re-emphasized the importance of quality, cut back on overhead, and trimmed the workforce in the company's bureaucracy. In the process, Xerox regained much of its lost market share.
But this is a very key aspect of our total document processing strategy, and I see that printing system's right in the middle of it.
Now Kearns wants to bring some of the same business techniques to schools. He's even written a book with Dennis Doyle, a conservative educator, called Winning the Brain Race.
We've got a real crisis in education, and it's been brought to the attention, but I do not think yet that it's at the top of the American agenda, because if it was, we would have made greater changes than we have today, and that if we take the track that we are on today of improvement, and it is improving, that improvement is not nearly enough, and we're talking about 30, 40 years to get this problem fixed, and we cannot wait that long. Business is, in fact, a natural ally of education. But we, like you, are growing impatient.
Kearns feels that the education reform movement of the 1980s has been simply tinkering at the margins. This point of view angers educators who say they've been working hard to make things better.
Let's quote David Kearns. Things are so bad that we need a revolution.
That statement implies that everything that's been done up to now has had no effect, and we might as well start over again and throw out all the hard work that's been put in to making the schools better. I think that displays an ignorance of what has occurred in schools.
Honig says that Kearns' call for revolution is unnecessary and wrong, and Honig cites the success California has had in achieving higher test scores and raised standards as evidence that a policy of incremental change is best. But Kearns ends up being dismissed again, this time not because he's a businessman, but because he's too radical and too critical.
If a David Kearns is willing to say, hey, this is your idea of making this school better, I don't think it has a chance of working, or this system better, I think that this is a better strategy, that's a legitimate debate, and we'd love to have it. But starting out the question by none of you know what you're doing and nothing is happening is not a way to start a cooperative effort to make our schools better.
Maybe Bill Honig is right that we haven't patted people enough on the back about the strides that have been made, but the changes that need to be made in the American education system are onerous. They're very difficult to make. There's entrenched bureaucracies, just like entrenched bureaucracies at Xerox. It's extraordinarily difficult to change something. If you don't get pressure from the outside, you don't change.
Exactly what type of radical change is Kearns calling for? Well, the first change Kearns wants is what he calls parental choice. Let parents choose their children's public school and make those schools compete for students. Kearns believes that the marketplace, call it educational capitalism, will make schools produce. Not unsurprisingly, choice has its detractors in the education community, including former U.S. Commissioner of Education Ernest Boyer.
I have no confidence at all that a choice arrangement is going to somehow bring all the boats up. What it's going to do, in my opinion, is going to allow the more entrepreneurial and more successful and better informed to find a way to work themselves out of a system, and the rest of it is going to become increasingly a black hole where more and more of the young people who need the most help get the least.
In short, Boyer argues middle-class parents who are better informed about schools will take advantage of a choice system. They'll send their children to the better schools. Poor and minority children will end up being forced to choose from among bad schools. That's no choice at all.
The airline travel metaphor is a good one here. You know, in coach you have a couple of choices. You have 2 or 3 choices from equally bad meals. And in first class you have several wonderful choices. If that's what they mean by choice in public school, they better start thinking again. That wouldn't be fair. And then I would certainly oppose them.
Everybody should fly coach? Everybody should fly first class?
No, everybody flies business class. Wouldn't Mr. Kearns like that? Business class.
Choice is, I think, is key over the longer term, because I think it will force the change that's required. But it's the most controversial and the most difficult to implement and will take a long time to do.
Choice may be controversial, but it's gaining some influential supporters.
It does make local administrators much more sensitive. When a parent comes in and says, I don't like what's happening to my child, in the past, often they just say, well, it's too bad, this is the school your kid goes to. Whereas now they know that that child can be moved from that school to either to another school or another district, and they're much more likely to treat the parent as a customer and make adjustments. I think that's good.
So does the President of the United States.
Further expansion of public school choice is a national imperative.
To see choice in action, let's go to the place where David Kearns first saw it work, East Harlem, New York City. 17 years ago, before choice, this school district was at rock bottom. The key player in making choice happen was former Deputy Superintendent Cy Fleeger.
Of the 32 school districts in New York City, it ranked 32nd in reading and mathematics.
The worst.
The worst. Attendance was poor, suspensions were high. All the things that you associate with a failing school system, we were number 1 in.
Knowing things had to change, but not sure how, the district devised an innovative rescue plan. They came up with the idea of allowing parents to choose which junior high school to send their children to. Furthermore, teachers were invited to design schools around themes. There's a math and science junior high, an arts and music junior high, another modeled after parochial schools with uniforms and a strict code of conduct. The idea of involving teachers in the solution is a sound one, according to Mary Futrell, head of the NEA.
We want to be much more involved in the whole process. And where you have that kind of involvement, you're going to have ownership, you're going to have more cooperation, you're going to have more pride, more sense of let's make this succeed. And so let's make the public schools work for everybody, and let's make those schools better than they've ever been before.
The choice formula succeeded in East Harlem. The district is now 16th out of 32 districts.
Oh, if you have kids who selected your school, and their parents selected your school, and the teachers selected that school, there's a sense of ownership. That school's going to do better than a school where you had to go. I had no choice in it.
Clearly, the idea of choice is that schools, when they are competing for teachers and competing for students, that they will, in fact, do better, and I believe that competition does do that.
The success of choice here in East Harlem has been well publicized, but in 17 years, only one school district in New York City out of 32 has copied the approach. That happens with a lot of educational successes: quiet applause and benign neglect. To make choice happen on a national scale, David Kearns wants to bypass the education establishment and go directly to people with the power to make change, governors.
I think that the governors of the states are number one from a political standpoint. They're absolutely key to getting things done, and there are governors around this country, both Democrats and Republicans, liberals and conservatives, however you want to put people, that really are going after changes and working their constituencies hard.
It's a privilege and honor to be here to talk about choice in education, not only in Minnesota, but across the country.
One governor who vigorously supports choice is Rudy Perpich of Minnesota.
We have always done better in this country when you have options, when you have market forces at work, and this is what's happening. I'm very excited about it. I really and truly am.
Governor Perpich played a major role over the last 4 years in getting Minnesota to adopt a statewide choice plan. The plan allows students to choose to go to any public school in the state, and state funding will follow them up to $3,500 per student. But the plan was initially opposed by many in the education establishment, including some superintendents who were concerned about the financial impact choice might have on their district. Barbara Zone is the head of the state PTA.
I've said to several superintendents before who have said, well, we can't have this because too many students will leave and we won't have enough money to educate those that are left. And my reaction to those superintendents who did that was, if I were a parent in your district, I would already be gone. Because if you think your schools are so bad that many people would leave, then there's something going on in those schools that I don't know about that would worry me quite a bit.
Although few students have elected to jump districts so far, the element of competing for students has lifted the overall quality of many school districts. Since choice began to be phased in 4 years ago, the number of advanced placement classes has quadrupled, and foreign language offerings have doubled. The lesson? Successful choice in Minnesota and East Harlem involves more than allowing parents to choose schools.
If you don't have quality, it doesn't make any sense to have choices. I mean, if I ask you to travel a half hour to go from one lousy school to another, I've done nothing for you. So there has to be a degree of quality developed before the choices can really begin to have any meaning.
Kearns agrees with Cy Flegel. He wants what he calls restructuring to go along with choice.
We're really saying that at the building level, that the teachers and the principals at the building level must be given much more authority to run their schools the way they really want to. If you had choice but still had, in other words, you said there's going to be choice, but if you have some superstructure on it, above it, it says that all the schools will be exactly the same and must run the same, then you really don't get the benefit of it. So restructuring and choice do tend to go together.
Choice, the word that David Kearns helped put into the spotlight, is now on educators' lips everywhere. Arkansas and Iowa recently approved their own choice plans, and at least 15 other states are developing plans of their own. In fact, because education is prone to faddishness, many school districts may soon label themselves districts of choice. But labels mean next to nothing. So backers of educational choice say, look behind the label and ask, is there quality? Is there variety? And here's another test. In a true system of educational choice, what happened to this business would happen to bad schools. If nobody chose them, bad schools would fail and go out of business. Educators use that word, failure, to describe students, not schools. Public school choice has the potential for dramatic success, but it's risky. And unfortunately, it seems as if most educators would rather live with mediocrity than risk failure.
We're going to have to learn, by the way, to live with some failures. That's very difficult to do in a political environment, because some of the things that we try will not work, and they will have to be redone. And that's why the people, the educators and the politicians that are willing to step out and to try new things need our support.
As David Kearns told correspondent John Merrow, America's governors are the key to school reform. In fact, the governors are the ones who have led the education movement of the past decade. But their leadership has not always been acclaimed or followed. Fewer than 1 in 3 American households have children in the public schools and thus have a personal stake in their performance. Many local school boards bristle when their autonomy is challenged and resist any changes sent down from the state capitol. And most state legislatures do not like being pushed by their governors to raise taxes. Certainly no governor has pushed harder in the past few years than Democrat Bill Clinton of Arkansas.
We're here today to begin what I am convinced will be, whatever the outcome, an historic session of the legislature. For by what we do and what we decide not to do, we will decide the future of our state as we move toward the 21st century. Questions I've been asking all over Arkansas are simple. Do you think that education and economic development are the keys to our future? If you do you believe somebody will pay for it if we don't? And if you don't we at least have to try as hard as everybody else is in the country?
That was Governor Bill Clinton in January of this year trying to take the Arkansas legislature where it wasn't quite sure it wanted to go.
Putting more money into our public schools.
It was Bill Clinton trying to convince the legislators that if they really wanted to keep education reform rolling in Arkansas, they would have to raise taxes. He knew it wouldn't be easy, given the country's anti-tax mood.
Can you round it to the hundreds for me?
For generations, Arkansas had hovered around last place in public education. In 1978, a report prepared for the state legislature concluded a child would be better off going to school anywhere else in the country than Arkansas.
We have a long way to go. We're last in spending per child, last in teacher salaries, last in state and local taxes per person.
But in 1983, Governor Clinton persuaded the legislature to finance an overhaul of the school system by adding a penny to the state's 3-cent sales tax. Arkansas's old public school image, fueled by the 1957 memories of integration at Little Rock Central High School and Governor Faubus's use of the National Guard, got supplanted by quite a different political story. A vibrant young governor raising up his poor state by making school reform the most exciting issue in the country. The 1983 reforms put Arkansas on the map.
I'll send you an autograph with a seal of the state on it. Okay?
We've added hundreds of courses. We have tripled enrollment in math, science, and foreign language and computer science in this state. Test scores are up. Racial and regional differences are down. We're in the top 10 states in the country now in the ratio of computers to students in the public schools. College going's up by 15%. We have the lowest dropout rate in the South. We're 46th in per capita income and 15th in high school graduation rate. I think those are pretty good results.
To see what rural schools were like before 1983, take a look at Nevada County in southwest Arkansas. Its per capita income, $10,014 per year, is below the state average. Prior to 1983, Nevada had 7 different school districts, one of the most inefficient school systems in Arkansas. Tiny schools, some with only 120 children from kindergarten through the 12th grade. Limited courses, low test scores, only 20% going on to college. But then, prodded by the new state standards and encouraged by financial incentives, 5 school districts in Nevada consolidated to form one district, and then built this $3.4 billion school, which opened just last fall. 775 students now attend this one school. Hired to run the new consolidated district was Barney Kaiser.
How did the parents back in 1983 come to realize that something had to be done?
The condition of the school plant, the inadequate curriculum, the lack, I think, of numbers of children that were going on and pursuing higher education. It had just reached the point of stagnation.
Are you able now to measure the results of the 83 reform other than this new building? Are there other benefits of that reform?
Oh, I think, of course, the expanded curriculum that we're being able to offer our students now, the resources that teachers have to work with.
You cannot imagine the difference. The first year I taught, we had kids typing on typewriters that they were off the typewriters more than the typewriters were. And now we have the top-of-the-line equipment, and it's nice.
Nevada County students for the first time were able to take advanced biology, physics, art, meteorology, even journalism. Consolidation also meant a stronger basketball team. It went to the district finals this year. Consolidation meant integration, and for many it was integration for the first time. And consolidation meant, said school board member Herbert Coleman, the chance to be ready for college.
There was a lot of courses that we didn't offer that I know they needed, because when I went to college, there was courses that other kids from other schools had that I didn't have the opportunity to get. And I saw that, and the other board members did too, and we saw the need, and we just thought it was the greatest thing that could ever happen.
But not all in Nevada County thought the one big central school, even with better courses, outweighed the loss of school autonomy.
To me, in a small school, you know all the kids. Kids knows all the teachers.
Jack Faulkner is vice president of the Emmett School Board, which refused to consolidate.
Everybody wants to better their education. When you talk about bettering education, I don't think you'll find anybody that disagrees with it. But the end result, you know, is what we've seen right now. You know, I don't think we've bettered it that much. But yet, you know, we really won't know until on down the road.
But Governor Clinton says education in Arkansas can't wait until on down the road. He said recent hard times, the downturn in oil, agriculture, and timber, shrank state revenues and forced him to go back to the legislature in January for another penny on the sales tax. Another penny, he said, would raise about $211 million, and with about half of that, he would raise teacher salaries by an average of $4,000 per year.
Everybody needs more money. It seems like it costs much to live, you know. Teachers, farmers, grocery store people, and, you know, everybody can always use more money. We want all these things, but we don't want to pay for them. You know, we want good education for our kids, we want good roads, but we're not willing to support it and pay the taxes.
Even though Arkansas's teacher pay scale ranks 49th out of 50, there was immediate opposition to a salary increase. Clinton's request for more money for schools bumped heads with practical politics.
I represent an urban district in western Little Rock. I am absolutely convinced that the people there are overwhelmingly opposed to what they consider just throwing money at the problem. I don't think that's the answer. The governor's advocating a $4,000 per teacher raise. I don't think that the public is convinced that the teachers are going to teach any more or teach any harder, nor that is the answer, in essence, to our problems.
To say that money doesn't matter in teacher salaries is crazy, because teachers are not a frozen population. They can leave, and they do all the time. The average teacher is only staying in the classroom 7 years today. And here in Arkansas, we're the lowest or the next lowest state in the country in average teacher pay. We've got a terrible shortage right now in science, math, language teachers, and a looming general teacher shortage. So we do have to do some non-monetary things. I'm for alternative certification, so you don't have to go to a college of education just to teach. But in the end, you're going to have to pay these people good, decent salaries and pay them more if they stay longer and if they perform well.
To help Clinton push his latest education package, a group of powerful businessmen formed the Arkansas Business Council, known popularly as the Good Suit Club. One of its founders was Charles Murphy of Murphy Oil.
We have convinced ourselves, and hope we can convince the people of Arkansas, that this is a good deal. Now, which is least costly? To have a person as a ward of the state from age 4 through high school, and then have them go out as productive people, or to keep them on the welfare rolls and in the prisons, which is the best deal for the taxpayers.
Even with the backing of big business, Clinton's campaign for raising the sales tax to pay for school reform has been uphill. Since last fall, he has been to at least 24 forums and given more than 100 speeches from Little Rock to Paragould to Jonesboro.
Thank you very much. I spend most of my time as your governor trying to do two things. One, to raise more money for schools and to make them better, and two, to bring more jobs into this state.
And I tell people that we've got to keep working on this until no young person ever has to leave the state to find a job, and no investor ever passes over this state because they think we can't compete in the world economy.
And I believe with all my heart, if we don't do this, it will cost us jobs and income and opportunity. I wouldn't be proposing this otherwise. I mean, the last thing I need to be doing is fronting another tax increase. You know, I mean, I realize it's not a politically popular thing to do.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Hang in there.
But for the most part, Clinton's campaign has not yet generated sufficient political pressure on the Arkansas legislature. Senator Knox Nelson of Pine Bluff, in fact, has broken with Clinton on the sales tax issue.
He's been preaching to the choir.
Oh, he has?
Yes. He goes out, and he had one in my district, two, and you look around who is there, your school people, state employees, or appointees. You know, your leaders in the community are not there. The rank and file are not there. But
where are they?
They just didn't take enough interest to come.
Why isn't there support in your district?
I think this is not only in my district, pretty well statewide. This program that the governor has proposed is a very good program. It's very ambitious, and I think it would do something to help education. But the response that I've had from my district and from the people in the state, and I have never opposed an educational tax in this state since I've been here. But it's just too overwhelming against at this time.
A lot of people say, well, the voters back home don't know what was done with the last tax increase. And George Bush got elected on the Read My Lips platform, and that's what they want for you. They want you to just cut back.
You mean that the George Bush Read My Lips gimmick has got produced an anti-tax phobia in Arkansas?
Absolutely.
That one thing has?
Well, sure, they believe that's one of the reasons he was elected president.
Governor Clinton's reading of the Arkansas political terrain seems accurate. 2 hours southwest of Little Rock in Prescott, population 4,100, we stopped at the Broadway Cafe and talked with a few citizens who had supported Clinton's first school reform back in 1983, but are now not so sure about raising the sales tax.
I know the education system needs some changes made, but the additional tax money right now is just not good.
But you can't get something you don't pay for, can you?
We may be paying for more than we're getting now.
Oh, really? What do you mean?
Inefficient government services.
I think Bill Clinton, to some extent, has lost touch with what the folks can afford to pay for and how it can be afforded.
I guess I'm not well enough advised on what the plans are and how they're going to be implemented, and I'd like to have more information before I would vote for the tax.
The regular session of the Arkansas legislature adjourned on March 17th after it approved a string of major Clinton school proposals which would cost the state little or nothing. School choice, mandatory kindergarten, a minimum teacher salary of $16,000, further incentives for school consolidation, and improved school accountability.
Senate bill referred to joint budget.
But the legislature failed to take any action at all on the big-ticket item, the 1-cent hike in the sales tax to raise teacher salaries.
Could it be that you've been around too long and that your message is so familiar to Arkansas they're getting sick and tired of it?
It might be. I think some of the legislators are tired of it.
Yeah.
And they think the people are. But, you know...
What do you think?
All I can tell you is I've never gotten any better reception from the people.
as I have when I've been out on the stump for the last several months doing this. Sure, people get tired of the same old face, maybe. It's like, we're not talking about movies or sports or entertainment. This is life. This is not, theater. It's life. This is something that we have got to devote a decade or more to until we get it right. We've got to get it right. We are not competitive with other countries in developing our people, and we're going to get murdered unless we compete. And in our state, we're not competitive with other states. States in this country with low unemployment rates and high per capita incomes have better educated workforces. That's how they diversify their economies. That's how they get the good jobs. And we're either going to compete or we're not. They can get tired of hearing the song, but it's got to be sung over and over and over again until we're playing on a competitive playing field.
While Clinton and his fellow governors of the 80s, men like Riley in South Carolina, Alexander in Tennessee, Evans in Idaho, White in Texas, while they were pushing for statewide school reform, many others were pushing at the county and the local level. Charlayne Hunter-Gault tells us about one local reformer who says what is needed more than money is a change in attitude by the parents and the teachers. This reformer is no educator. He's a professor of child psychiatry at Yale University.
These teachers from around the country are going on a school trip, but this one has an unusual destination. They're going to what's been called a documented miracle, Catherine Brennan Elementary School in New Haven, Connecticut. What they're going to witness is how one man, Dr. James Comer, created that miracle.
My feeling is that schools can be changed. Most schools can be changed in anywhere from a year to 3 years so that they can work much, much better and help more children grow, function well. Children grow and learn best in a positive, a climate that's positive and supportive.
But 15 years ago, before Dr. Comer and his team from the Yale Child Study Center started their experiment at Brennan, the school's climate was anything but positive. An inner-city school, Brennan reflected many of the problems of the poor neighborhood it serves. Test scores were among the lowest in the city. Absenteeism was high. Parental participation was low, and teachers were demoralized. But Dr. Comer changed all that. Last year, Brennan won a nationwide math contest, and its reading scores are now among the best in the city.
Okay, what did you do?
Drop the Y at IED.
Good. Okay.
To change the climate at Brennan, Dr. Comer first focused on the relationships between teachers and students.
It is a process that you cannot make schools better simply by telling people that they must be better and to hold high expectations. The major problem is that for years we have focused on content and passing on information to children rather than focusing on their development. And it is their development that really makes them available to learn academic material. And schools are not organized that way.
Under the Comer approach, teachers do more than teach the 3 R's. They are expected to understand why a student might be misbehaving or acting out. Then the teacher is encouraged to try and address the causes of the problem rather than merely punish the child. Dr. Comer remembers that at first, teachers were reluctant to take on this kind of role.
So that you can find some teachers who are asked to respond a certain way to a child and they'll say, I'm not a social worker. Well, that's an attitudinal problem because treating children well and helping them grow has nothing to do with being a social worker. That's what good teachers should do.
But there's more to this equation than caring teachers. Good principals and good parents make up the other part. As Dr. Comer sees it, the role of the school staff is to encourage sometimes reluctant parents to participate in school activities.
I'm available to help you. So I'm here because I want your kids to stay in school.
Unlike traditional schools, parents here don't just attend PTA meetings or bake cookies. Under the Comer plan, they are full-fledged partners, working with the principal and teachers on planning curriculum and other school matters. It seems like a fairly simple concept, but there were at least 2 big obstacles. Principals and teachers had to overcome their reluctance to share power with parents, and parents their negative attitudes about the school.
For many parents who didn't do well in school themselves, school is a threat. They remember bad times in school.
And often the way we run schools, we don't call the parents in until their children are in trouble. So again, it is a threat. Now, if you bring the parents into the school for a variety of activities that are good activities, good experiences, they interact with the school people in ways that they view and feel respect. And the result of that is that they felt a sense of ownership in the school, and they wanted to be involved, and they felt comfortable in the school. Then they began to turn out in huge numbers.
Deirdre Wells, the school's current principal, was a teacher when the Comer approach was instituted. She believes the augmented role given to parents has been a large part of the success of the Comer program.
It's very helpful as a teacher to have parents involved in the school. It was an extra hand, and it was, parents clearly understood the goals and objectives of the school, so it was very easy for them to come in and to take an active role.
One of those parents actively involved is Linda Gray. She volunteers in the cafeteria, working alongside her mother Agnes, also a volunteer. Linda has 2 children at Brennan, Sherry and Charlayne. A graduate of Brennan herself, Linda Gray is a firm believer in the Comer approach.
It's like more people care now what happens, and trying to make things better for, better for their kids in school. And most people from these kind of areas, you got to give them hope. Because if you don't give them hope and tell them they can make it, they get lost in the shuffle.
Linda has a desire for her children to do well, and having that desire, she wanted to be here, and she wanted to be a part of that team to see the success that she wanted for her children.
The Comer approach has done more than improve the academic performance of Brennan students. It's had an equally good effect on parents.
Aren't you proud of Mrs. Gray? Well, tell her. Tell her that you're proud of her. I'm proud of her.
Yeah. I'm proud of her.
Linda Gray, for instance, is going back to school. Although she's a high school graduate, she never learned to read, a fact that was hard for both her and her children.
Sometimes they bring you notes telling me about a trip, and I wouldn't know how to read it, And they would be embarrassed to take it back to the teacher and tell the teacher, my mom don't know how to read, By me getting into that literary program made me believe in myself more or less. Believe that I was somebody, I could do more than what I'm doing.
The Comer program has even made believers out of a lot of people beyond the inner city.
The key aspect of Dr. Comer's philosophy is to build quality relationships.
Here in Prince George's County, Maryland, the program has been put into a number of the district schools. In fact, school districts in 6 states are now utilizing the Comer formula.
It can work anywhere. In fact, it's needed for all children, not just low-income children. Today's children are under more stress than children ever before, I think. The village or community that used to help children grow, where the parents and the neighbors and church members and all of those people who are available for young people are not as available today as they were a few years ago. Given that, the school needs to work differently.
Can you say goodbye to my guests?
What Dr. Comer is advocating, of course, is that our schools do for our children what parents, churches, and neighborhoods used to do. Love them, nurture them, support them, and be proud of them. Such a restructuring would require substantial help, and it would have to come mainly from the states and the localities, because the federal government is not in the business of restructuring local school systems. It never has been in that business, of course, and yet today the federal government is led by a man who wants to be remembered as our education president. That contradiction between the political wish and the political reality was the basis for our first question to President George Bush.
Mr. President, knowing what you know about the constitutional limits on the federal role in education, and knowing what you know about the budgetary limits on the federal role in education, why did you want to be the education president in the first place?
In the first place, because as I look to the future, education holds the key. It holds the key to a better life for our young people, and it holds the key to
to the United States being competitive in world markets. And it holds the key to whipping the problem of drug use. And so every time I turn around in the short time I've been president, I see some urgency about having a better educated America. You're right. The budget implications put some constraints on the federal government. But a lot of what a president can do is hortatory. Encourage the people that have the responsibility, the main responsibility for education. And I'm talking about local school boards, PTAs, local governments, state governments, private educational institutions. Encourage all of them to do the most they can, while at the same time have whatever federal resources are available. And there are many problems that a president wrestles with where the answer isn't necessarily more federal money. Actually, Roger, I'm sure you've had this on your series, but the total money spent, I think, on education is estimated to be $330 billion a year. And the federal participation is between, my recollection is correct, 6 or 7%, maybe 20, 21 billion.
Not much.
And so, so therefore, and it's right, actually. It is right that local schools and local school boards and parents and states have the main action on education, if you believe, as I do, in the federalist system. Some want to see Washington do more and more and more. I don't. What I want to see is what we do it better, and what we do encourage excellence across the board. And some of the proposals we've made aim at that.
In your State of the Union, you said that we cannot tolerate mediocrity any longer. Why do you think Americans have tolerated it for so long?
I don't know. It's a very penetrating question, and I'm not sure I know the answer. I think in some ways we have condoned those things we should have condemned. I think we've gone through a period in education where there wasn't much accountability, where we got away even from grading as an infringement on some young kid's right. We got to a layering of certification that really says, look, if you want to take a sabbatical from your line of work today, or if I did after I got out of this job, I couldn't go teach in a public school, and you couldn't today if you were given a month off, unless there was some special exception because of certification. So we've had layers of certification. We've had kind of a bureaucratic view, or maybe a societal view, that if you mark a kid and give him a bad mark and he isn't promoted, this is a stigma that will hurt him all his life. Now we're rethinking. Society, not federal government, rethought a lot of it. And we see excellence. Reward excellent teachers. We see choice. Give parents a choice. And where it's done, the school that they choose against raises its standards because of competition. We've moved away from the condoning some of the things we should have condemned.
What do you perceive to be the three most pressing problems facing the American school system today, Mr. President?
Three most pressing? Drugs, drugs, and drugs.
Really?
I think so. I think, I could give you, I hope that's not a frivolous answer, but I want to say it that way because of the impact that drugs are having. They have it on the morale of teachers. They have it on discipline in the classroom. They have it on the areas, the adverse impact on the areas that need help the most. And so it isn't a frivolous answer, I guess, drugs.
Do you think ever in an acquisitive society which rewards power and possessions, that teachers ever will approach the standing that we give to bankers and brokers and coaches and oil men and presidents and so on?
I think there is a wealth of goodwill towards teachers. And I think when you get down to what shaped your life, people come back and say, well, this teacher or that. But whether we do what you've suggested, I don't know, because teachers are not in the teaching profession because they think that 10 years down the road they're going to be wealthy. They do it because of dedication. And so how do you measure how you reward a teacher? I don't know fully the answer to your question, but I do know that we've got to encourage excellence in teachers. We've got to signal that we respect those who choose that profession and find ways to encourage more to do it. But they're never going to have it made like the categories you said in a financial sense.
But it's not so much money, is it?
Yeah.
It's just respect, isn't it?
But don't you think as you've gone around that the bottom line is respect for teachers? I do. I haven't had the laboratory experience that even this series is driven you to have. But it seems to me that the respect for teachers is there. It's almost a given in our society. And what I've tried to do with these teacher awards programs is to try to recognize that. Use what Teddy Roosevelt called the bully pulpit to bring some outstanding teachers in here. The governors, incidentally, I don't know how many you've been exposed to in this series, but you got Governor Tom Kane or former Governor Lamar Alexander, and they will tell you that just rewarding teachers, encouraging them, not lots of money, is the way you bring along others to aspire to those same standards of excellence.
Let me tell you about a couple governors that we have dealt with. One in particular in Arkansas, Bill Clinton, and also Thompson in Illinois. They have gone back to their legislatures for added taxes, sales tax, income tax, to help keep education reform moving. They've run into a stone wall, and they've run into the read my lips syndrome, and they are finding state legislatures refusing to raise taxes because of your success last fall. So now we have the phenomenon of an education president being used as a cover to refuse to raise taxes to improve education.
Yeah. I can't pass judgment on the fiscal problems of the state of Arkansas or the fiscal problems of the state of Illinois. But what the federal government should do is to hold the line on taxes and not create new taxes that take away from the state's resource base. And so I would let each state governor, obviously, make his own decision or her own decision. But I will not criticize nor extend the read my lips syndrome to every governor that has to, is mandated to balance budgets.
Do you see in the Japanese school system, Mr. President, any characteristics that might be exported to America?
I'm not an expert on it. I understand they're pretty tough on discipline, and I understand they spend less per capita, I believe, than we do. So it's not a function of spending a lot of money. You know, it's interesting, some of our states that put less money into education per capita achieve the highest scores, which proves my thesis that it isn't how much money you throw at a specific educational program that's going to result in the excellence we seek. Roger, I have to duck it. I don't know enough about the Japanese education system.
In your State of the Union, you also said that we must help those schools that need help the most. Does the program that you sent up to the Hill recently do that? It seems to me that the very things that you are proposing help those who don't need the help. The good scholars, the good teachers, the good schools.
But don't those schools need the help there more than anybody else?
Well, that's my question.
Wouldn't it be good to single out a scholar from a disadvantaged school and showcase them and say, you can do it? Look, the federal government is not going to solve the problem of the disadvantaged school. But let me give you one example where I think my approach does help. Parental choice. I think it's shown on a couple of case history that where people have gone to the school where the principal is the disciplinarian, where there is accountability, the schools that are left behind improve their standards to compete. So I think that whole approach of accountability is a helpful approach to those who those who need it the most disadvantaged.
If you weren't faced by budgetary restraints, if you were restrained only by your own political philosophy, what would the Excellence in Education Act look like?
Might have more dough, because I'll have to readily concede that I wish we did have more federal resources. Let me give you one example. We are helping more than any other administration black colleges, historically black colleges. And I think they perform a terribly useful role in the overall education process. And would I like to give more money in there? Sure. And I can go category by category with you. I'd like to have more encouragement for teachers, more scholarships for science students, more to work towards the goals of excellence in education, more to help in some of the heavily impacted areas where the dropout rate is the highest. But we don't have that. So we've got to set our priorities, and that's what I've tried to do in this budget.
The Supreme Court has ruled that racial equality is a federal issue, but in effect it's ruled that economic equality is not. Do you think it's fair for a child in the Camden Ghetto High School to have less than $4,000 spent on them, whereas the child in the Princeton High School gets $7,000 a year spent? Is that not a violation of civil rights?
No.
No.
It is not a violation. Is it fair that a football coach makes 10 times as much as a high school teacher? Is it fair that a television announcer on the network news every night makes 20 times or 30 or 40 times as much as a teacher that's trying to keep your kid and mine out of narcotics? Or my grandchildren, maybe you. I don't know about you, Roger, but no, is that fair? I'm not sure everything is equitable, and I am sure, though, that the federal government can't smooth out everything like this, but we have a system of diversity. People can choose. One of the things I like about the choice is they might not be able to move from Camden to Princeton, but if we have this choice take hold, they can move into a school that is less heavily impacted by drugs, or where they have less discipline in the corridors. So there's, anytime you look at society, there are inequities. But what the chief executive has to do is care about it. When one little sparrow falls to the earth, when one little kid is deprived because of narcotics, safety coming in to and fro school, I do care about that.
I have one final question. Your wife asked me the other day if the series reporting on it had made me discouraged, and I told her that I had seen in the work I'd done maybe 450 points of light. And she said, well, that's better than none. What is your count in the field of education?
Million. Points of light. A million. Every time a PTA member goes to a PTA meeting, every time a person who has it made and could be off, taking his kids off on some vacation somewhere, gives time to participate in a school board, every time a citizen school program bites into a tough neighborhood to try to help someone, that's a point of light. And so I think there are millions of points of light out there. And my goal, to encourage it, to stimulate as best I can. Look, I'm not the most charismatic guy in the world, but I feel something strongly, maybe I can get it across. And we've all got to be a point of light.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Roger.
Whether there are 1 million points of light, or 1,000, or only 450, probably is not of great consequence. What is important is that in America today, lights are visible. Just 6 years ago, those lights seemed to be burning out. The Department of Education's Commission on Excellence sent shudders through the nation that year with its chilling conclusion. The educational foundations of our society, said the Commission, are presently being eroded by a rising tide of mediocrity that threatens our very future as a nation and a people. That report, called A Nation at Risk, and sponsored by the very cabinet department President Reagan had promised to dismantle, performed a service unparalleled in the long and oft-times prickly relationship between the federal government and our public schools. That report helped push back the tide of mediocrity with waves of educational reform and upgrading and restructuring. All of us have marveled over the past 5 weeks
at the new spirit and pride and enthusiasm we've seen in Kentucky and Ohio, Massachusetts and Arkansas. But we would add one word of caution. Much of the school reform appears to be driven by America's loss of her competitive economic edge and the threat to our jobs. Schooling, we would suggest, is not a preparation for earning a living. It is one of the objectives. It is not the main one. Learning is for the sake of learning, not for the sake of earning. Learning in America should not only enrich our own spirit, tolerance, wisdom, and inner contentment, but also should enable our country to function and flourish. For a nation so diverse as ours to maintain itself, there must be intelligent discourse and common understanding. For that, education is the keystone. It is perhaps too early to conclude that we are no longer at risk and that in the past decade we have resecured our place in the world. But as the past 5 hours of Learning in America have revealed, we are again on our way. I'm Roger Mudd. Thank you and good night.
Learning in America is solely funded by the Chrysler Corporation in the belief that only a quality education will keep America competitive today and tomorrow. The divisions of Chrysler Motors are Chrysler, Plymouth, Dodge, Dodge Trucks, Jeep, and Eagle.
Are they going to want more Gandhis, more Thomas Mertons, more Thoreaus? Are they going to want more people like William Faulkner and Flannery O'Connor? Probably not. Those people would be terrible for business. Faulkner would never show up on time.
Which is least costly? To have a person as a ward of the state from age 4 through high school, and then have them go out as productive people, or to keep them on the welfare rolls and in the prison.
To order a video cassette of this program for educational use, call 800-5